Thank you for clicking on the video. Since the last video I made, a few things have happened on the channel. Firstly, I interviewed one of the developers from Camouflage and learned a whole lot more about Batman Arkham Shadow. I got early access to Zero Caliber 2 and made a gameplay video, and I also shared my first impressions of playing Behemoth for the first time. So I felt now was a good time to update my thoughts and also update this video with the most anticipated games that you and I are looking forward to in 2024. First up, we have Deep Silver and Vertigo's Metro Awakening VR. This is easily one of the most anticipated VR first-person shooters for 2024, and we still have yet to see anything in terms of feedback or hands-on impressions, but what we do know is it's a new story in the Metro series, which I'm really pleased about because I've completed all the others, and I've always wanted a proper VR experience set in this world. The game is set in the year 2028, and the survivors of the, world nuclear war are now living in the subways underneath Moscow. You play a character called Saber, who has to brave the darkness of the Metro, avoid deadly radiation and the masses of mutant threats in search for your wife and the medication to save her. If this game is done well, it could be a massive hit for the VR community as a whole. Next up, we have Batman Arkham Shadow, and this is personally my most anticipated VR game, and it's coming exclusively to MetaQuest 3. Earlier this week I sat down with developer Ryan Payton from Camouflage and learnt a massive amount of information that really puts together how this game is going to be when it eventually launches. We now know the foes are the Ratcatcher, Harley Quinn and potentially the Riddler, plus more, as he stated the amount of enemies will be similar in quantity and playtime to the flat screen Arkham games. We now know as well there is a Batcave which features Alfred, and we also now know how the combat system works and much more. These developers were behind Iron Man, which is still to me one of the best superhero VR games ever made, so I have high hopes when it drops in fall of 2024. Now, very little is still known about Alien Rogue Incursion. Apart from it's being developed by Survios, it's been in development for over 2 years in Unreal Engine, and it will be a single-player action horror game, and is coming to all VR platforms this holiday. We did, however, learn some extra info via an interview on IGN. The aliens will attack en masse, feature pretty good AI, and is sounding more like a roguelike style gameplay loop. There is one bit of worrying information which I picked up, and that is that the game is going to be designed to be enjoyed in short bursts, which for me, as someone who can play VR for absolutely hours, has me concerned, but I'm still very hopeful this will be an excellent game, and the Alien game VR deserves. Now, some of you might have missed it, but I actually have played Behemoth now, and I'm pleased to say it didn't disappoint. But currently I've only played it on the PSVR 2, and I've yet to see how it performs on MetaQuest 3, and especially on MetaQuest 2. Good thing is, the physics and the interactions were all on point, the hook shot was brilliant, and the Behemoth fight was satisfying. We obviously still have more questions about game length and worlds and how many Behemoths there are, because I think they've suggested there's going to be 4. But I personally want to know how these Behemoths will play. Is it going to be like Shadow of the Colossus, where they're like a puzzle for you to overcome? Either way, I'll leave a link to my gameplay video for Behemoth in the video description. Now, Wanderer is easily one of my best puzzle adventure games I've ever played on PCVR and PSVR a couple of years ago, and it's now being remastered for PSVR 2, PCVR and Quest. We now also have a release date of September 12th after it was delayed, and the developers have been dropping lots of side-by-side comparisons and just showing the amount of work they are putting into this remaster, and it really does look like it could be a very different game this time round. So if you haven't played the original Wanderer, you're definitely going to be in for a treat. Into the Radius 2 is shaping up to be a great sequel, especially with the addition of online co-op missions. It will also have new remodeled weapons, new enemies, and much more. I did a pretty in-depth video covering all the features I'm excited about a couple of weeks ago, and I'll leave that down in the video description. But one thing Into the Radius definitely has is atmosphere, and I think what I'm trying to get my head around personally is how that's going to feel sharing that world with other players. Aces of Thunder is coming exclusively to PSVR 2, and the devs have been dropping lots of stunning footage on their socials, and while we still don't know much, what we do know is the game is currently running at native 90 FPS, which would suggest to me they are going to be using eye tracking and dynamic foveated rendering, which means we're going to get some fantastic visuals. You can switch between using your hands to physically interact with the cockpit and fly the plane, but you can also use the controllers. Now, what I can't find out currently is if the game will support HOTAS, but but since these are the developers of War Thunder, I'd be pretty shocked if the game launched without that support. In terms of planes, they've confirmed an assortment of Soviet, German and Royal Air Force planes. I'm massively excited for this. Gunman Contracts started life as a mod in Half-Life Alyx, and it soon caught the attention of everyone who wanted a more exciting, realistic FPS. Now Gunman Contracts is coming as a standalone project featuring some incredible weaponry. It also has a single player campaign and secondary objectives such as saving hostages, for example. Yesterday the developer dropped a brand new gameplay video in the vein of a devlog update, and it featured myself and Mike from the VR Oasis getting murdered simply for being nice people.
Hey, the premises is off limits. You gotta leave right now.
You heard him, fuckface. Off you go. Come on.
Get the fuck lost.
You heard the man. Get lost.
Big mistake, motherfucker.
XR Games, the developers behind Zombieland, are developing Zombie Army VR for Rebellion, who are famous for the Sniper Elite franchise, and just in case you missed the original announcement, it's coming to all platforms, features player progression, authentic World War II weapons, 2-player co-op, which I am personally a little disappointed to hear because I wanted 4-player, similar to the flat screen, and hopefully the game will have cross-platform support, but I can't find that information currently. Either way, I'm very much looking forward to getting my hands on this one. Metal Hellsinger VR is a violent rhythm-based FPS. The flat version was extremely well received to critical acclaim and is now getting the VR treatment. In Metal Hellsinger, you step into the body of a half-demon hell-bent on vengeance with an arsenal of hell-based weapons, where you must kill to the beat of heavy metal music from some huge artists such as System of a Down and many more. It's coming to all platforms, but I'm assuming what we're seeing in this gameplay trailer is PCVR. As a fan of Doom and Pistol Whip, this looks to have a really addictive gameplay loop, and the art style is exactly what I've been craving. The VR version also features the full campaign from the flat version, a tournament mode, and more. Arken Age is a VR action-adventure game set in the Biochasm, a terraformed fantasy world created by the Grand Arborist. From the developer behind Shadow Legend, you will engage in full physics combat using Arcanite-infused swords and guns, and you get to freely explore the densely filled environments under siege by Hyperion's neural corruption. It's coming to PCVR and PSVR 2, and the developer confirmed eye tracking and dynamic foveated rendering will be implemented, meaning we can expect some fantastic visuals on all platforms. Hitman VR Reloaded has been built from the ground up for VR exclusively from MetaQuest 3 and is coming from XR Games. It's also going to feature a number of new mechanics such as new improved movement options and locomotion options, making it easier than ever to navigate complex environments with speed and stealth. It also sports a brand new look, probably maybe due to being on a mobile processor, in the way of being cel shaded. You'll also be able to dual wield for increased interactivity and will feature a completely overhauled user interface. I have many questions about how this game is going to shape up, and I did actually enjoy Hitman in VR, but it was more of a jank fest than something that was enjoyable. It was funny because it was bad in some ways. So there is a lot of pressure on XR Games to get this right, but from what they've been doing recently, they've been making all the right moves. I was very fortunate to be one of the first content creators to feature Zero Caliber 2 the other week on MetaQuest 3, and I came away very impressed with what the developers have so far achieved on a standalone device. It feels genuinely great to play, the weapons sound awesome, and for those of you like me craving a single-player COD-style action campaign, this may very well end up being what we've been waiting for, and you can obviously play the whole thing in co-op. Development is still continuing, but as the game improves I will be checking it out, and I'll leave a link to my gameplay in this video description. Now last week I played the Blade & Sorcery 1.0 update, and it was one of the best VR games I've played to date. I tried the single player campaign to get one of the crystals and beat the boss, which was, in all honesty, one of the most unforgettable experiences I've ever had in PCVR, but it's left Quest owners asking, is Blade & Sorcery Nomad going to get the update? And the good news is the answer is yes, and the developers have also stated they are going to be bringing Blade & Sorcery to PSVR 2 at some point. If this game currently isn't on your radar for any reason, I would highly suggest you check out the update and get excited for what Warp Frog are doing next.
That's fantastic. That's like being in a movie.